In today's briefing,
abakuuma eddembe mu bitongole bingi bya gavumenti beenyigidde mu lutalo lwa COVID-19 nga bagezaako okukwasisa abantu ebiragiro bya gavumenti, naye abamu ne bakozesa amaanyi era n'obukambwe obuyitiridde ekiviiriddemu n'abantu abamu okufa era n'okulumizibwa mu ngeri ezitali zimu. Buli muntu alina eddembe ery'obwebange. Abantu bwe baba tebagondedde biragiro, kyandibadde kirungi batwalibwe mu mbuga z'amateeka bavunaanibwe emisango era nga gibasinze balyoke bakangavvulwe mu ngeri esaanira. Naye kikyamu omukuumi w'eddembe ate okuwa ekibonerezo naddala eky'okufa ng'abantu tebatwaliddwa mu kkooti.
Twaha Kawesi muganda w'omugenzi agamba basabiddwa emitwalo n'egyensimbi za Uganda ne beewuuba ennaku bbiri nga beegayirira bw'atyo muganda waabwe bw'alabye biganye kwe kweyokera ku poliisi.
Temyeko omuliro mwasirikidde naye ye omusirikale gwabadde ayagala okufa naye tufunyeeko amawulire nti yaawonye, naye ekisinga okunnuma mu kyo security naffe tulabe ng'abantu nti naffe tuli bantu mu nsi yaffe, eno ensi yaffe buno obulwadde bwajja naye obulwadde tebwajjirira kusaanyawo obulamu bw'abantu.
Amajagazi wano ne poliisi emmotoka ezisuka 10 nagatandika okukuuma gulede ezabadde zimenye ennyumba ya Katonda nga bakuliddwamu DPC wekatwepenuwo wedda yaduumira gulede ne zimenya paka sawa 7 ogw'ekiro. Naye badde ekkanisa ya Katonda yinduka kati balonda mu sikulapo Mukama tusaasire. Omusajja gwe bayita Doddo w'omundeeba, musajja gwe bayita Doddo yamenya ennyumba ya Katonda okufaanana bweti. Naye ffe tukimanyi bulungi Doddo bakutaddewo nga kisiikirize. Abamenye ekkanisa eno banene mu gavumenti naye Mukama atusaasire. Eyo yebeera mwe tulimu eddiraze. Tuli mu kubonaabona ekkanisa eno gy'olaba tubadde tusonda nusu 10 ne tuzimba ekkanisa eno. Tuzimba ekkanisa eno okugituusa wano bwetuuse. N'ekyannaku nnyo tibagisaanyizaawo mu ssaawa 2 zokka bwe ziti.
Ekikolwa kino tekyakoleddwa ku lwa Katonda, kyakoleddwa lwa nsi yaffe, wabula kyakoleddwa Sitaani. Oli weebuuza lwaki tebajja ku makya nga kaakati ne basenda nga mwenna we muli ne basalawo ekiro tuli mu kafyu.
Tata Musumba nga bamenye ekkanisa nga balonda abantu 20 basabire ekkanisa basabire eggwanga.
Anti muli bangi n'ebya COVID mwabiwulidde, kati yatandise kusenkenya Kampala.
Katono nnyo omusajja n'avaano nga oba yeesimbye wanoonya ebiwandiiko bye ne baleeta bibuludoza ne bimusalako ne bamusitula n'agenda nga mu bbanga naye nga balonda abantu 2 okusabira ekkanisa eyamenyese.
Abo babyabufuzi tojja kubasobola bwe mwali eronzeemu abantu 2.
Bano abajambula abamenye ekkanisa ate be balemesa abantu okutambula kati bibagasaaki. Bwe baali nga bagimenya lwaki temwasobola kukugira baagimenya ate kati muli wano mutuleetako akababba obubbi bubajjudde abasajja.
Tonyiga mubuulizi, poliisi gisabire busabizi ebeemu obuntu bulamu. Ate kati kemukkirira bayinza okubayoola ne babakuba ku kabangali. Bazibu nnyo boolaba abo. Yesu omuteefu, ababuulizi mukomeewo wano nti mukomeewo.
Ani akulembedde ekintu kino? Ani akulembedde ekintu kino?
Ebulani naawe ekkanisa baagimenye ate obuuza akulembedde. Buli muntu munyiivu.
Muddeyo gundi jangu jayo.
Tetudda ku lutikko tugenda mu ndeeba.
Muddemu amaanyi bwe tumala okusaba ne tugaba omukisa mutambule muddeyo eka.
Tudde eka tutuule butuuzi ng'abasajja bamenye ekkanisa.
Awulidde ebigambo ebyo agambe nti amiina. Kanziremu ogwokubiri mpulire.
Abamu baaganye okukuba amiina nga baagala kukkirira mu ndeeba.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are watching us. Welcome to today's COVID-19 and governance briefing by the People's Government. Today is the 15th of August, 2020. My name is Dr. George Ekwaro, the Minister of Health in People's Government, the legitimate government of Uganda. We apologize for having not been able to bring this briefing in the last 2 weeks due to other engagements that the President and us got involved in. Today's live Facebook broadcast is going to be run on the Twitter handle of Kiza Besige and Facebook pages of Kiza Besige and People's Government. Send in your questions related to issues of governance and COVID-19 through the comment section, and the earlier you send it, the better, and they will be answered. Today's address is going to be carried out by none other than the People's President, the legitimate President of Uganda, the winner of 2016 elections. Without much ado, let me take this opportunity to welcome him. He's already with us here. Mr. President, you can start addressing your people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my brother, Dr. George, and a very good afternoon from our headquarters here in Uganda. It's a rather cool day today in Kampala. We've had a lot of rain in the afternoons over the last couple of days, and maybe we will have another shower this afternoon. I also would like to add my voice to that of Dr. Ekwaro to apologize for not having been able to communicate as scheduled over the last 2 weeks. Indeed, it was entirely out of our hands. We were engaged in a manner that we could not extricate ourselves. And so I hope you are well since we last engaged together. I'd like to sympathize with all those that may have had challenges, difficulties, maybe losses during this period, and to also join those who may have had something to celebrate in your personal lives or in your collective endeavors. And to that extent, since we were together, we had our Muslim brothers and sisters celebrate Eid al-Adha, and maybe I can belatedly also congratulate all of them on having gone through that very, very important holy day. And to indeed pass my greetings to you by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And that I wish you had Eid Mubarak. Similarly, we had a joyous event in the Kingdom of Buganda because at the closure of July is the day when His Royal Majesty, the Kabaka of Buganda, Ssaabasajja Kabaka Muwenda Mutebi II was crowned, and this was marking the 27th anniversary of his coronation. And similarly, I would like to extend my belated congratulations to Magulu Nyondo Baffe Ssaabasajja. Kulika nnyo era weebale okulamula Obuganda bulungi. We indeed continue to celebrate all kinds of achievements that our friends have had, and I've had quite a number of friends that have had wonderful events that we joined them to celebrate. Last night, I was overjoyed by one of our brothers, Joshua Cheptegei, breaking a world record for 5,000 meters in Monaco. Cheptegei has been a source of pride for our country, and he continues to inspire young people in our country by his immense world-class achievement. And mark you, this is in spite of coming from a country which frankly does not do much to support our sportsmen and women. We live in a country where there are no sports academies. We live in a country where there are no sports trainers, even in schools. In fact, in most schools, even playgrounds have all been sold off. Most of our schools don't have any playgrounds, even for physical education. So to excel to a world stage and break world records is indeed extremely remarkable. Wherever you are, Cheptegei, know that you warm our hearts and we congratulate you immensely. Now, we have, as usual, this briefing divided into two segments. We would like to spend a little more time now on governance than on COVID-19, because at any rate, COVID-19 is greatly influenced in how we respond to it by governance issues. And so my briefing on COVID will be fairly brief. The first thing is that, as expected, there has been a steady rise in the number of confirmed cases, and we are seeing a focal area, a hot spot, now settling in the capital city, Kampala, on top of what was originally the two hot spots of the entry of Malaba, the Kenyan border, and the Legu up north on the Sudanese border. So these are now very clearly COVID hotspots. And there is now no more debate that COVID-19 is not only spreading, but it is in the community. We have now community spread. And also over the last 2 weeks since we met, we have now a steady rise in the number of deaths. So far, without yesterday included, I haven't had a report of what happened yesterday, because now reporting on daily events, unfortunately, delays. So the official, and what I'm reporting is what is reported to us in Uganda. And I'm saying what is reported to us advisedly, because I know that it's also different from what it is indeed the reality on the ground. So what is reported so far is that up to yesterday, 12 people had died in Uganda from COVID, confirmed as deaths from COVID-19, and 8 of the 12 were actually here in the capital, Kampala, and others scattered across the country. In Kampala alone, in the last 10 days, there were about 80 new cases, confirmed cases. So there is a very clear indication that we may be getting this situation out of hand, and therefore need to really be extremely careful. Regrettably, because of how this situation has been run, we have a population now which is very skeptical about even the presence of COVID in Uganda. You had a period when the respect for what those in authority say and do has been steadily declining. And so now, even when this information comes out of the Ministry of Health, there is hardly any response from the population, because trust of the population towards what the officials of government say has really plummeted disastrously. There is no trust in what government says. And that started right from the way the lockdown was managed. The violence that came with it through the soldiers of the local defense units. These are militias that were trained recently, which I will be talking about under the governance segment. There was a lot of ruthlessness in an attempt to enforce what were called restrictions of containing, which were necessary to contain the pandemic. And that violence down was managed, created violence scare in that that's where the confidence in the government, which were necessary to contain the pandemic. And once the lockdown was effected, there was no support for the population to survive under lockdown, because most of our people live hand to mouth. So if you abruptly lock them up, it's like when you arrest somebody and put him in prison, which were necessary to contain food. This is what happened pandemic in Uganda. And we locked down the country. That violence down was managed down, because most of our people live hand to mouth. So if you abruptly and so lock them up, it's like when you arrest, many people became desperate, and many people realized that they were on their own. They did not consider that government was a partner. Beyond that, because transportation had also been shut down, people who were getting sick could not get to hospitals. And there was no provision of transportation, provision to transport the patients to the hospitals. And so people suffered without any support from ailments, and many people indeed died under lockdown from causes that could have been managed by our healthcare system. So again, this increased the desperation of people and the feeling that they were on their own. Government did not have their backs, did not protect them. And especially when all this was also happening as the government was borrowing a lot of money and stealing it, literally, because a lot of money was borrowed and indeed reported on. But that money did not go into activities to support this desperate population. Trillions of money was sorted away into State House and the Ministry of Defense, what they call classified accounts for matters that cannot be disclosed. And even what was put aside to deal with matters relevant to the COVID, to buy food for those who were starving, or to buy medical equipment for our frontline health workers, appropriations of money. Stories were abound of how even that was not being used for the intended purposes, and a lot was being stolen. So we ended up with whatever food that was distributed as inadequate. Up to today, months into the pandemic, our healthcare frontline workers are still very poorly provided for. They don't have protection equipment. They don't have other equipment to use. They are not paid their allowances, or if paid, they are not paid on time, and so on and so forth. So there is tension and lack of what would maintain high morale within our public service as a result of these governance issues. And all this simply helped to bring down the confidence of the population in the government that was at the forefront of managing this pandemic. And of course, that has continued. You know, the politicization of the pandemic and how it has been used to prepare certain sections of the population, while, you know, severely restricting others, as we have seen, you know, in the politics, where the NRM people act as if there are no guidelines or restrictions, that restrictions are for only those who don't support the government, which was headed very regrettably by the very author of the restrictions, the Minister of Health, when she was published all over the country in our media, engaged in the total opposite of what she had been professing. So, as a sum total of these and many more, we have a population that does not believe the stories of there being a pandemic in Uganda, and the need to follow guidelines to contain the spread of this virus. As a result, I am extremely very worried that we can easily head for a huge disaster, because even as we talk, our people continue to gather socially without any care being taken to minimize the spread of this pandemic, wearing masks or keeping distance or seeing people vigilant on washing their hands and protecting themselves from getting this virus. That is the situation all over the country. And including in very crowded places like we have in the urban centers. So this is a very big worry. Secondly, on top of this worry, the government of the junta, which controls our resources, has seen it as necessary to invest some resources in promoting the boosting of immunity of the population. That is the second most important thing. The first one is to avoid getting the problem. But secondly, because sooner or later we shall get the problem, it is to prepare to fight it with our bodies, since there is no medicine and no vaccine. There has been no attempt whatsoever in terms of, the campaigns in the media and so on to guide the population to boost their immunity. I have been talking, I've been rather a lone voice on this. I published on our media outlets what you can do. Because sooner or later we shall get the problem. I think maybe it's time to republish it so that you really pay attention on boosting your immunity. What you can do, because sooner or later virus into your body, it is now the virus and your immunity that will determine how you fare. That is why young people who are well nutrited, who are healthy and well nourished, that's why they are not seriously affected by the infection if they get it. But even if you are young and you have no immunity, strong immunity in your body, maybe you are not eating well, or maybe you are not eating the right things, it will knock you down. And that's why I think the first person to die in Uganda officially was only 34 years. So don't be deceived that I am a young person, I am safe. What makes you safe is the immunity. And of course, our immunity rises from childhood, it rises to adulthood and is maintained. I am safe. What makes you safe? Late in our lives, over 55, it starts going down. And that's why if you are above 50, 55, you must do more than the ordinary people to boost your immunity. You have a duty to do more. Not ordinary diet is not enough. You need additional. You need supplementary diet to keep your immunity high, either in the form of vitamins that you take in tablets or additional multivitamin complexes like I prescribed that you can take regularly to boost your immunity. These are the two critical things that I just want to use this opportunity to further emphasize and drum. Please take this pandemic very seriously. Wear masks wherever you are amongst other people, and wear them properly. Wearing a mask properly means you must put it to cover your nose. It must be above your nose and up to your chin. Most people, you see the nose outside. That is the very wrong way of using it. Even worse still, those who put the mask around their throats. Please wear a mask when you are among people, wear it properly and keep it on. And don't touch the front of the mask, because when the mask comes down, I see quite often many people touching the front of the mask to adjust it. That is wrong, because the reason you are wearing it is so that it can stop whatever infection is coming to attack you. Now, the way it stops it is to have it on the outside of that mask. So if you touch it, you now pick what you had stopped and infect yourself. So wear the mask, wear it well. Keep social distancing. It's very, very critical. And of course, maintain the hygiene that we have been talking about. Washing your hands, not touching your eyes, mouth, or nose. Maintain the hygiene. Make sure you don't sneeze even when you are, because when you sneeze, you propel the droplets that have virus, that could have the virus very far. And so even with social distancing, you become a menace to others. So if you have to sneeze, sneeze in a hanky or in your elbow. So let's, and especially the people in urban centers, please take a lot of care. We are on our own. I told you that a long time ago, in spite of what the government was trying to do to praise itself for everything being all right, it was very clear that they were not doing the right thing. They did not have a plan to contain this thing, and the virus found our country, which when it was already very vulnerable. Because I have been hearing the question, where did we go wrong? We have been wrong for the last 35 years. When you don't have proper national planning, when you don't follow the right priorities, you don't fund health. For 35 years, health has been starved and is broken down. You don't ask what is wrong when the pandemic arrives. You won't change that overnight. When you have never prepared for disaster, because when the pandemic came, we had no food reserves. There are no food reserves in Uganda up to today. We had no reserves of fuel and petroleum products. So that's why we could not close our borders. We could not close our borders because we were in an empty house. And the trucks that kept on coming imported the virus and distributed it all over the country. So I wonder why people ask what happened. It happened because we were in a very vulnerable house, without any reserves, without any health care system to talk of. Those are the two main disasters that advise where we are. Secondly, when the pandemic came, we didn't make a plan. And so, even now, you can't ask anybody the plan in the healthcare sector, the plan of quickly increasing healthcare workers, the plan of quickly increasing facilities, the plan of, these plans are not there. And so we shall continue having a lot of problems. We must indeed pay a lot of attention to God, because so far we are protected by the grace of God. And may that grace keep on protecting us, because what God instructed us to do, that is to use the talents that He gave us, we have not used. Because God says He helps those who help themselves. Now, we have not helped ourselves, but it's also for some reasons that are beyond our control. And that's why we seek His mercy. So I wish you well. I wish you to remain safe, but you must be vigilant, maximum vigilance. And that's where I want to rest my remarks that are specifically related to the COVID pandemic. As you have indeed observed, the COVID pandemic runs a course that is very, very closely related to the governance of the country. I pointed this out in my very first briefings, that how a health pandemic plays out in any country is governed by three things. First, the healthcare system. Secondly, the political or the social capital of the governance, of the system that governs the country. How much people believe in the system of governance and identify with it. That is a critical factor in how any pandemic plays out in this. So the governance questions are critical. They affect all other systems. Politics affects all other sectors of public endeavor. And that's why when the politics go wrong, everything else goes wrong. I quite often wonder when people talk about financial liberation. I've been hearing these days some talk about financial liberation, which is absolutely necessary in our country. But you can never have financial liberation without political liberation. People must be free and empowered and in charge of their country. That's when they prioritize their lives. That's when they manage their resources. And so, governance is at the heart of what goes on in our country, good and bad. And it's now the reason we are paying more attention and more time on it is because we are in a time within our political calendars in this country when there is a lot of political activity. It's a year when we are supposed to prepare for general elections as required by the Constitution of Uganda. And there is a lot of, there is beehive activity in the country related to electioneering. Indeed, there are very many people that have been inundating me with telephones and inquiries on my media platforms about the politics that is going on, and even my own personal role in what is going on. And I have had a bit of time on whenever opportunity arises in the media to explain some of what is going on. My dear brothers and sisters, fellow Ugandans, if we do not get the proper diagnosis of what is wrong with our politics, in other words, with our political management, the management of our country, we shall never get a treatment for it. And I'm using these words because quite obviously I come from a medical background. I never trained to become a politician. I trained to become a medical doctor. And in medicine or in medical work, we spend a lot of time trying to find out what the problem is before we can prescribe what the solution to that problem is. Because if you have fever, you have a high temperature, it's not wise just to buy medicine to bring down your temperature, because temperature has a cause. Temperature is what we call a symptom. It's a sign of something else. So if you have malaria, it will cause a high temperature. So if you treat malaria, the high temperature goes, even if you don't take anything. You also have high temperature. And in fact, his diagnosis. Actually, his diagnosis in many ways was also a symptom. Because why do leaders not want to leave power? What is it? The one who was saying so is now not leaving power. Why? So the problem, as I understand it, is that you see any country which, of course, is God-given. It's God who created us into the various species that we call planet Earth. And we have migrated maybe along the way to different locations, but we happen to find ourselves in certain locations at a point in time. How we, the people who were created free and equal, our creation is the same. We were created as free people and as equal. We are not created some to be rich, some to be poor, some to be strong, some to be weak, some to be to have health care and others. We were created equal and free. What happens along the way in those relations, in how we relate to each other, depends on whether we are still, we have equal say where we are. Whether we can exercise equal rights or equal authority where we are. In other words, people live and share equally when they have equal power. If one is more powerful than the other, the powerful one will unfairly treat the weaker ones. That is a law of nature. The law of nature is that the lion will eat the goat. That is the law of nature. Whoever is stronger eats the weaker. And in the scheme of things, when we talk about a food chain, the stronger eats the weaker eats the more weaker. However, those of us who are at the same level, like human beings, we are at the same level. We can also oppress each other. The power relations between us can change. And what happened in our country is that those power relations have been highly tilted against the greatest majority of the people that live in a country called Uganda. Few people have all power while the rest of the people have no power. So few people eat the majority of the people. And let me tell you, people who live in advantaged situations will not commonly, very, very rarely, will people who are in advantaged situations relinquish their advantage for those who are disadvantaged. People always want to maintain their benefits, their advantages. That is, again, in nature. We are in nature selfish. Everybody wants to protect and be better by themselves. So the only way we attain some equilibrium, some balance, is for everybody to work to ensure that nobody takes away your right. And that means you have to fight. You have to fight to protect. Everybody must protect their right. If you don't protect your right, you are eaten. That is the unfortunate situation in the world we live in. So in Uganda, all of us who lived in the areas called Uganda now had different communities, which I'm sure all of you know. We had these naturally evolving centralized systems of government. We had kingdoms, we had chiefdoms, we had clans living as organized entities and so on, which had naturally evolved, again through some struggles. However, a foreign force came and took over all our power, came with greater might, with greater force, and subdued all of us. That was a colonial power. Colonial power conquered all our states and subordinated us and made us subjects. We lost our citizenship. We lost our rights and freedoms and became subjects of the Queen of England. That is the first and most critical stage that explains what is happening today. And the British ruled us by force for 70 years. We must never forget to thank our ancestors who fought very, very hard to free themselves. The freedom that we now relatively enjoy, saying we are independent Uganda, was fought for. The British did not say, we have ruled you enough, now you go, you are free. No, we fought for it. Our fathers fought, the Musazis fought. Musazi, who is sleeping there in Kololo, yes, he should sleep on the Heroes Square. They fought to free ourselves, to free us. And when the British couldn't contain it, they granted us self-rule. But the self-rule came with the same guns the British were using to control us. And those who inherited the guns inherited the ability to continue dominating us. That is why, since independence up to today, no leader has been changed because Ugandans have said so. Every leader has already been changed by guns. Whoever gets power power by guns. Now we hide our heads in the sand if we do not appreciate that the power differences between rulers and those they rule is caused by the force of guns, then we are missing it. So power in it is controlled 1890s when the British came. It's controlled by guns up to today. That is why in every political season, the guns must come out. That's why the LDUs are now all over the country. It is the rule of the LDUs. It is the rule of the crime preventers. It is the rule of the special police constables, all these militias, that is the rule of the Kakoza Mutares and his Karangara action plan. Guns, it is the rule of the military, it's the rule of the police. They are the ones who determine what happens in the country. It is the gunmen that control all the resources of Uganda. If you don't appreciate that, you are lost in analyzing the situation of our country. All wealth is controlled by whoever has power, and that is whoever has the guns. And Mr. Museveni has been telling you openly that all the money is his, all the oil is his, all the gun, all the army is his. He means it, and it's the reality. So elections in situations where the controller of the power is guns is an election of legitimization, because fortunately, gun rule is no longer formally allowed in the world. From the time of the World War II and the United Nations and so on, the idea is that human rights are universal. It was decreed that every citizen must be free by law of the United Nations. So if you dominate people, you are acting illegally in international law. So all our gunmen must look for cover under which to continue dominating us. That's why they pretend to organize elections that have never caused any change and cannot cause the change. But as I have been saying, although that is their intention to legalize themselves, to legitimize themselves, by pretending to organize elections, they also open an opportunity for us to get some limited freedom that we can use to organize our fight to free ourselves. So, I have dwelt on this matter because it advises what is going on now. It means that where I come from, what advises my political engagement what I would like to believe advises the political engagement of the party that I subscribe to, the Forum for Democratic Change, but which I know is also shared by many people in other political formations, is that Uganda is a captive state, captured by gunmen. And gunmen, from time to time, overthrow each other. But the country does not become free. So Uganda is divided into two: those who captured the state and the captives. We are captives. That is the first point I want to make in this regard. Secondly, is that for captives to achieve their freedom from their captors, they must fight for it. It will not be granted on a silver platter. We fight. And the question is simply how you fight. But it's a fight. People who dominate you will leave you when you have generated more power than they have through fighting them. And we must see the political activities we are engaged in through that light of the fight. And let me break it up now. The NRM, which I advisedly call a junta is a small group of armed men that control a country. The NRM, which is organizing the elections, is organizing it to legitimize itself. You are aware we have contested since 2016 that they didn't win that election. We are coming to another election when I am still a prisoner, charged with treason for declaring myself a winner. That case has not been heard up to today. We are now, you are already asking me to be a candidate, even when I'm still a prisoner charged with the treason for having won an election. So 5 years are going of a stolen election. The first thing Mr. Museveni did when he stole that election was to appoint a new body that organizes elections, a new electoral commission. This Byabakama commission, he appointed it when he was on a stolen chair and preparing to steal more. So if somebody, we are fighting over what he has already stolen and is appointing somebody to organize another contest, would he appoint an electoral commission that can organize an even remotely, pretentiously fair contest? Absolutely not. So the Byabakama Commission is 100 times worse than the Badru Chigundu Commission. Just like the Badru Chigundu Commission was 100 times worse than the Aziz Kasuja Commission, and so on and so forth. But that was the first task he did when he was appointed. I'm sure you remember that Byabakama was my prosecutor in the capital offenses that I was charged with previously. I was charged with rape. I was charged with the treason again in 2005. I was charged with terrorism. I was charged with illegal possession of guns. My prosecutor in chief was Byabakama, then working as a DPP. So now he is the umpire of the elections and all the other commissioners. That commission, therefore, is not an electoral commission to talk about. Shortly after that, the same Mr. Museveni attacked Kasese, which in 2016, the people of Kasese had fought over and won overwhelmingly and forced the junta to declare them winners. In 2016, we won all the 6 seats in Kasese. We won the district chair and the other local governments. So, the other first thing of Mr. Museveni in this term was to attack Kasese and destroy it. The king of Kasese is still in prison, even as we talk. Hundreds of people of Kasese are still in prison. Hundreds are in mass graves in Kasese. All for nothing, this was just election violence because Kasese had defied. Of course, they were destroying Kasese to send a message to the rest of the people, and especially those who have kingdoms and so on. That is the rule since 2016. Now, you will remember that around the same time, some time back, a Chinese man was arrested in America for having bribed Museveni and some other leaders, Kutesa, some Kutesa here. And evidence, overwhelming evidence was produced in the American courts, which is in the public arena, which every Ugandan can have, that shows the corruption, where they passed the money from, the airport, where all this. And that money was being said that it was to help Museveni in the 2016 elections. And of course, after that, they took the Chinese to inspect our oil wells. So the country is every day being sold to maintain the junta in power. Beyond that, Mr. Museveni would never be on the ballot paper again, because the constitution was very clear. He should not be on the ballot. Nobody should be on the ballot after 75 years of age. He took the same military to parliament to beat up MPs to change the constitution. This is what I tell you. You know, those who think that this is not a military junta. We would not be having a discussion now about Museveni remaining in power if the military had not attacked parliament. You had the Speaker of Parliament lamenting, Kadaga, about who attacked her parliament. She didn't invite anybody to come and beat up everyone. That is the politics we must talk about. Then, you know, you've been hearing what is happening with the Bank of Uganda. The money that they printed in France and some containers that were transported in the aeroplane disappeared. And you have been seeing Bank of Uganda officials in parliament. There is no money in Bank of Uganda. It's bankrupt. We have just put, taxpayers have put in more billions in Bank of Uganda just in the last budget, because there is no money. Bank of Uganda has only one client. That is the government of Uganda. There is no other client. So what happened to the money in the Bank of Uganda? You have seen Mr. Museveni raid the Bank of Uganda time and again. The most grave was in 2010, when they removed nearly $700 million from the bank, which caused an inflation in that election. That's what took sugar from 1,000 to 10,000, and fuel skyrocketed. Money removed from Bank of Uganda. This is because, as I have told you, whoever controls the power controls the wealth. We waste time that we are reading the budget. There is no Uganda budget. It can only be a Museveni budget. He takes whatever money he wants. That is what was happening all before COVID. In the middle of all that, COVID arrives. What happens under COVID? First, they run to borrow, and borrow 600 million euro. That's equivalent to about 2,500 billion. Because there was absolutely nothing in the store. Of that, only 59 billion out of 2,500 billion. 59 billion is what was given for buying food. About 100 billion was given to Ministry of Health. The rest, take it. And even what was sent in those was also followed and stolen largely. It is that money which was taken then that it is classified, which now the political bosses are running all over the country buying opposition leaders. That is the money, COVID money. And the brokers are all over the place now, you know, in the market for people. You will see many people, because everybody is starving. I don't blame those who take the money. Everybody is starving. COVID worsened the situation. Everybody is broken. All the money is with one group. Now, under this COVID, new restrictions have been imported into the electoral system. Some of you are familiar with that they call scientific election, where, as I have already pointed out, those restrictions only relate to the opposition candidates. The others can hold rallies, can occupy even in churches that were closed for believers. They now hold rallies even in churches, processions all over the place, while others cannot even go on a radio station. That is what has additionally happened. Of course, I have already told you the mischief of the LDUs during COVID. Again, it was an opportunity to make sure they beat everybody into submission. Now, when the whole world was crying, they tactically withdrew them, that they are going to train them, but now they are back. They are back to beat the hell out of everybody. As all that was going on, without any pretense now or shame, Mr. Museveni sacked the senior electoral commission officials, including the accounting officer, sacked summarily. You know, this is the electoral commission that is supposed to be independent. When Mr. Byabakama first released what he called the roadmap, everybody complained why he released the roadmap after meeting only Mr. Museveni of all the stakeholders. And in Mr. Byabakama's explanation, he said that he had gone to plead with Mr. Museveni to give him money for the electoral commission because the electoral commission did not have money. So you can imagine the independence of Mr. Byabakama, who in order to organize an election must, you know, plead and canvass and, you know, beg the candidate, the solo candidate, Mr. Museveni, to give him money. So that is the nature of the electoral process that we are now talking about. And we have to face it, deal with it in the most creative way. And the creative way that I consider and which we have had a lot of engagement on with various stakeholders, first of all within our people's government, but also between the people's government and other political actors who are change-seeking, is that we, you know, focus clearly on what outcome we want of the political processes we engage in. And then we work on how to get those outcomes. Because if the outcome, for example, was to be declared a winner in an election by Mr. Byabakama, and we think that that is the realistic outcome we want to pursue, we would organize a little, or with significant differences from if what we hope to achieve in these processes is to force the hand of the dictator who controls power to surrender it. In other words, whether we are contesting power electorally with an umpire of Byabakama, or whether we are contesting power through a confrontation that may involve or during an electoral contestation is the question here. I am very keenly aware that there are those in the force, in the change-seeking stakeholders or platforms that are persuaded that we can achieve change by organizing more meticulously to win and be declared as winners of an election. I know there are some of our colleagues who are that persuaded. And I'm sure you're not of that persuasion. I am of the persuasion, and that is where I said I am coming from, that the only way we get out of captivity is to fight. That is my persuasion. My persuasion also is that we don't need now to fight with violence, that we hold guns and shoot at those who are holding us captive, because we tried that and it did not lead to freedom. When you use guns to fight guns, these guns may defeat the other ones, they become the new problem. That's why we are not pursuing the fighting with guns, with weapons, with the lethal means. Because fighting with violence breeds more violence. So we choose to fight non-violently, but it's a fight. Just like our ancestors defeated the British without taking up guns. Actually, we can defeat the gunmen and subordinate them without taking up guns. But we must organize ourselves differently from if we are thinking that we already have the power and we have fair institutions and we are going to organize to see who exercises that power. That is a conversation that Ugandans need to have conclusively and make a determination on the way forward. So, from where I come from, I believe we should use elections tactically. In other words, as a helping hand to the fight, not as the ones by themselves to cause the subordination of the government. And indeed, that helping hand can be very helpful, but it's a helping hand. Ugandans must prepare to resist, to fight for their freedom. That is the bottom line. Just like you saw the captives of Sudan and al-Bashir stand up and fight for their freedom, even when there was no election. We can achieve freedom whether there is election or no election. In fact, you achieve greater in elections if the majority of the people are fighters rather than just voters. Because fighters can all vote, but not many voters can actually fight. So we need to prepare ourselves to liberate ourselves. I have been participating in elections with the dual purposes clearly in sight. I have never participated in an election with a realistic expectation that the Museveni Electoral Commission would announce me. But we tested the systems. We tested the courts. When they didn't announce me, we went to the courts. We tested the courts twice. So nobody can say we have not tested the systems. We have tested them. And this is why I have been, advising some of my friends that these experiences should not be ignored. We've had those experiences, they should be instructive to all of us. And even this election, even under COVID, can play a role and should play a role in our liberation, not in our being declared winners, but in our liberation. And so, fellow countrymen, I would like you to really focus on what it will take to fight to win. I have said many times that it will be three things. what will get us to win and to change Uganda forever are three things. It's not about having candidates and going into elections, which you are preoccupied with. They have a role, but not a strategically determinant role. What will determine the course of Uganda is what every Ugandan does. And so, if we are at the same page, I would like you to once again note the three things. First, that every Ugandan, to be helpful to change Uganda, should become conscious of our situation, should become aware of our captivity and how it comes about, should become aware that that each one individually needs to do something so that collectively we free ourselves. That is very, very important. Conscientization, information dissemination, so that everybody has a good understanding. This is not easy. It takes time for people to appreciate things. And we are unfortunate in Uganda that because of the bad situation in which our rulers have put the country, the capacity of people to understand goes down. So we have to work extra hard to make sure everybody understands. A hungry person won't listen. You must do more to make a hungry person listen to you. And moreover, 30–40% are stunted. Their brain power is less because they are not growing well. They are not eating well. They are stunted. 30–40% of Ugandans, young Ugandans, have been stunted by this regime. That is a very serious problem. But it is our duty to overcome all these and make that a critical number of Ugandans understand that we are captives, understand that we must jointly fight to free ourselves. That is the starting point. In other words, the purpose of that understanding is to turn every Ugandan into a fighter for his or her freedom. Everybody should be a fighter for their freedom. Not for any other person's freedom, for your own freedom. So that you can enjoy what God has bequeathed us, the wealth in Uganda, that you can share into it fairly, that you can share into the opportunities fairly. For that to happen, you have to fight for that freedom. Because people are more comfortable sitting and blaming Besigye. He said, Besigye, you have failed us. I am only one soul. All these leaders are just single souls. So every Ugandan must wake up, must become active. That's the first point. The second point is that we must organize. Even if we are aware, if we are disorganized, we can't win those few but organized gunmen. Gunmen are highly organized. That's why you see LDUs, even when they beat you, they are in a line of 10 people. They have a commander. They have a deputy commander who is giving orders. You don't meet an LDU just walking alone. If they were just scattered around, we would arrest all of them. So we also have to be highly organized. According to where you are, according to what you do, organize. And that's why even these political parties are important, because they are the only ones allowed by law. So even that space that is created, let's use it to organize maximally and mobilize people to become fighters for their freedom. So organization and mobilization is the second critical thing. And in this organization, we must organize the greatest possible coming together of Ugandans. It must not be limited to a political party. Freedom is not just achieved by partisan pursuits. Freedom is not partisan. Freedom is universal. So whether you are DP, whether you are UPC, whether you are now NUP, whether you are what, you must come together for freedom. We have to unite to get freedom. And that's why, some people who have been following have been seeing us engaged in every effort to try and bring those who want change together. You've seen us create platforms. People's government is one such platform. It's not partisan. That's why we've been having people of DP and of other types. We have to be inclusive. We have created the United Forces of Change, UFC, which we worked on together with the people, with the platform of People Power, which has now since also produced another political organization called National Unity Platform, NUP, all trying to get together to fight for our freedom. So, it is not the priority. It is not among our priorities just to get candidates. Candidates are important, are good, but that is not the most important priority. For me, the most important priority is awareness, organization, mobilization, and number 3, fighting. Fighting for our right. Telling whoever is oppressing us that enough is enough. And if we all, we are dominated by choice. If you say, I will not allow you to have power over me, nobody will have power over you. People control you by choice. Ugandans are controlled by our own choice. If we say we no longer want this, it goes away. But we have to be organized to assert our right. So, this is the creative way that I think we need to pursue. My sense is that all of us who want change should fight for a transition from gun rule to people rule. That should be the ultimate objective. Not a change of president, but a change from gun rule to people rule. This is very, very important because Mr. Museveni can fall tonight and will not be around tomorrow. That doesn't mean we have had change. Mr. Mugabe in Zimbabwe went a long time ago. Zimbabwe is still having the same problems because the system has not changed. So to change from gun rule to people rule will take a transition. It must be managed. First, we must defeat the guns, create a mechanism that can shift us to people rule. It won't come like a switch. And it requires thinking about it, how that transition will happen. And we have been thinking very deeply about these issues and discussing them amongst ourselves, that we must work for a transition, not just a change of leader, because the leader can change even without us working, but a transition, which has never happened in Uganda in the last 130 years of gun rule. That's the change that we work for. transition. And to get that transition and to manage it, we must think about having a transition leader, a leader around whom all of us can coalesce and fight, first of all, and when we win, that leader takes us through the transition. And the transition ends with free and fair elections. You cannot have free and fair elections in captivity. It's not possible. You can't go to Ruzira and you organize the prisoners to get a leader to manage them, because they are all prisoners. Even when you get a leader, that leader will be a prisoner. He's not. That's why some of our people even fight for leading the opposition. It's just being a leader of the prisoners. When you lead opposition, you are a leader of the, you are the katikiro in a prison. So we shouldn't fight we must break. And when we break the prison and come out, we must have a process in which we organize ourselves to have good government. And that's through a free and fair election. So we are talking amongst ourselves, and that talk continues around how we can, first of all, get what kind of transition we need, what kind of transitional leader we need, and how we organize ourselves to fight, to subdue the gunmen so that the transition happens. And as I have said, even the election arm will be helping, but every Ugandan must be in the fight. Every Ugandan must be in the fight. And it is that fight, for me, which is the most critical, which is why I have kept on telling people who ask me, are you a candidate? You are not a candidate. I tell them that is the wrong question for me. Because that's not a question that is going to free me. Whether I am a candidate, that election is not going to lead to freedom. So why should being a candidate be my priority? My priority, first and foremost, is to see that we have a good plan, overall plan, that leads to transition and ultimately free and fair elections. Secondly, that we are organized to fight to cause that transition to happen. So when I say that I am not, in whatever situation, I will never leave the fight until it is over. That's what I mean. The fight is on. The fight is not just in the electoral path. The fight is on whether there is an election or not. And I am in the fight. And I would like to invite you to be in the fight. Every Ugandan should be in the fight. If the election helps us in that fight, very good. If it doesn't help us, we still fight until we break free. And so the candidates come from parties. I am not leading a party, I'm leading a platform for fighting. The people's government is a platform for fighting for our freedom. I don't lead the party. I've been leading a platform to fight. The parties are getting candidates. And FDC, to which I subscribe, is in the process of getting a candidate. And I wouldn't like to be involved in, undermining that process or preempting that process regarding my person, me as a person. Fortunately, that process is about to end. It will end on on the
18th.
18th or 19th. I think it will end on the 19th. Whoever wants to be a candidate on behalf of the FDC should have shown interest formally by the 19th. I'm glad that that will close, so that the speculation about who is a candidate, who is not a candidate comes to an end. But what I would like to tell you is that I have refused to be sucked into a process that helps to divide the fighters. Because part of the reason those who dominate us keep in power is that they create artificial divisions amongst the prisoners. And we start fighting ourselves instead of fighting the real problem who captured us. So people have been wanting, Besigye is a candidate, Kyagulanyi is a candidate, I don't know, Mugisha Muntu is a candidate. You see the opposition cannot unite. You see they are fighting each other, and we become the problem rather than Museveni and his guns. We now become the problem, first of all, for each other, for the country, and so on and so forth. That I will not lend myself to be. Absolutely not. As I have pointed out to you, my preoccupation is that we must identify a transitional leader whom we should all support. I don't aspire, I can tell you, I don't aspire to be the transitional leader. Absolutely not. I think a transitional leader should be someone that has not been in contestation with other platforms. I have been. I've been a leader of a platform, contesting with other platforms, contesting with DP, with UPC. I think we should get a leader that is that we find comfort, all of us, fighting under. And the Ugandans, you can help us to give us a transitional leader under whom we all fight. And we all take it into the fight. If we are clear about what we want to do, if we are united, it won't take a week before Uganda is free. It won't. 1 week, Uganda would be free. So for me, the focus is two. Thinking about the transition, looking for transitional leader, and uniting the forces to fight. That is my first and most critical preoccupation. How the election plays out in this fight is a secondary matter. And we have a lot of people that can help us with this. So let's prepare ourselves. Change Uganda. People are dying daily, needlessly. After the lockdown, people have no livelihood. You have seen now people have resorted to burning themselves alive. I don't know how many people have burnt themselves up to now. You know, it started with a boda in Masaka who burnt himself in a police station. You have seen people burn themselves around. There was even one in Ankole who burnt himself in Kazo. Sometimes people think that the people in Ankole are okay. No, only the people who captured us are all right. Somebody in Kazo burnt himself down. He was also actually on a boda and was given a fine by a traffic office. He also burnt himself. People are burning themselves here in Kampala. No rent, nothing. They can't feed their children. It's urgent that we cause change. We cannot keep on moving in circles all the time. So let's focus our attention. Let's look for a transitional leader. Let's all unite behind the transitional leader. Let's say enough is enough. And let's manage a transition until we have a free and fair election. That is my take on the governance. And I have talked for all the 3 weeks that we haven't been here. So I think it's a good time to stop there and maybe take some questions. Thank you very much.
The questions are ready with you, Mr. President.
Yeah. There are very, very many questions here. But as usual, quite often, many of them you find are repeated. So the first one is Williams Brock, who says, seemingly the government has failed to control COVID-19. Having failed to distribute masks, failed to test people in the community, total shame to a country. But I am convinced with the death of reported COVID people, since they refused the public hospitals to test and treat Ugandans with COVID. I think Williams is mixing a number of things. First of all, that government has failed, I have absolutely no doubt. I have been telling you right from the word go, because it failed even before starting, because the state of our healthcare system was of such a nature that it would be a disaster in a pandemic. The fact of our social security, the state of our social security, the fact that the greatest majority of Ugandans live hand to mouth, there were no reserves to help Ugandans. All these were testimony to the failing even before we start. But the fact that the response plan was a very poor plan is again, was not a plan, in fact, is again not in question. That's why, for example, there is no plan for our children to go back to school. They were locked down and there is no plan that if we achieve this, then children can go back to school. The year is ending, we are going to have people lose a whole academic year and so on and so forth, and a lot of complications. That's why our, prayer houses are locked. There is no plan to say that this is what will happen to open people to pray in churches. The borders were locked for a long time, only to be told that if you put on a mask and wear a helmet, you can ride, as if that was different. Every Ugandan is required to put on a mask, and every border was, even before COVID, required to put on a helmet. So why did they kill our borders? Because there was no plan. So the fact that there was no plan is not in doubt. The fact that there was no plan for surveillance, to survey, to understand how the pandemic is spreading, there was no plan. They were just testing the truck drivers and those who came through the airport and things like that. No community monitoring plan. You are very right. We are paying now for all this. And you are right, the second point you raise is the question of using, you call it public hospitals, but I think they are private hospitals. Public hospitals are the government hospitals. I saw the Minister of Health indeed decreeing that private hospitals, which include, like faith-based institutions like Rubaga Hospital, Namirembe Hospital, Sandia Hospital, and so on, that they cannot handle COVID patients. That is ridiculous. including, of course, the testing. They eventually accredited some laboratories, private laboratories, though I understand even in those private laboratories, the cost is completely prohibitive and so on. But private hospitals, there is no reason why they can't partake in the management of this pandemic, especially when the public institutions are on their knees. These institutions have expertise that is needed. They have the equipment that is needed, the ICUs that are needed. They have, everything that is needed to diagnose and to manage. What may be a complication, the only complication may be in follow-up in terms of contact tracing and post-discharge management. But the post-discharge management can be organized, certainly. The contact tracing can be integrated with that which happens in the public sector, because the Ministry of Health has set up an infrastructure for contact with hospitals too. So there is, to me, no justification whatsoever in monopolizing this in the rotten institutions of the public. What I suspect is motivating that is money. Again, one thing, the budget, everything related to this, to be spent by them. There is no, you are very right on that, Brooks. Adam Luseiga is saying we don't have corona here. I would like to defer my brother Iga. Coronavirus is there in the whole world. That's why it's called a pandemic. There is nothing in Uganda which is so special that coronavirus is killing people in Kenya and it's not in Uganda. That it's killing people in Sudan and it's not here. You will be, part of the, I said when I was talking about governance, that part of our real serious problem as a country and why this country may actually never recover is the rate at which our people, grasp things, understand. I think it's challenged. We have a real serious challenge and we need to start contemplating how to overcome this. Corona is here. It has not been as serious as we were originally seeing in Europe. So far, it hasn't been as serious. But it doesn't mean that it can't be as serious. Have you seen how many people are dying in South Africa? What is the difference between what is here and what is in South Africa? Or what is in other tropical countries? So, prevention is better than cure. Keep yourself safe. If corona is not here, you lose nothing. Why first die and then, so it is here? Keep yourself safe. Put on a mask, even if there is no corona. What do you lose? Wash your hands. Is it very difficult? There are not many things that we are talking about. Same view by Rita Mali Musoke is also saying that there is no coronavirus in Uganda. That those being buried in the name of coronavirus, it's Museveni lies to take more money. The lies are also there. I told you that even the numbers they talk about, I don't believe in. That so far we have only 1,385. I think the numbers of coronavirus are more. or that, you know, so many were discharged, there are so many. The numbers that we are told, I may have issues with, because in any case, they are being managed by liars, you know, proven liars, proven enemies actually of the people. They are the ones in management. But don't confuse that with the presence of the disease and what you need to do to protect yourself. Don't. COVID is there, protect yourself. Ibrahim Abiriga says, I am constrained to believe some of these alleged COVID-19 deaths because their relatives say they died of their illnesses. So what's your take? Oh, their relatives say they died of other illnesses. So again, Abiriga is contesting whether corona is the one killing people. You see, in many ways, coronavirus is like AIDS. AIDS, if you are saying coronavirus doesn't kill people, then AIDS doesn't kill people. Because when you have the AIDS virus in your body, it weakens you. And then you are attacked by every other disease which kills you. So what would have killed you? The HIV, which weakens your immunity, destroys your immunity and opens you to now be killed by whatever comes? Or you think whatever came and finished you off is the problem? So, COVID, as I told you, if you have a strong immunity and good health, it may not do anything to you. And I have previously told you that about half of all those who get infected don't get any symptoms at all. They don't even know they are infected. Half. So when you see people who have been put in hospitals doing press-ups, you think that they may not have COVID. They may actually have it. These people are being kept in prison, in hospitals, mainly to eat money from the government. Because somebody who has no symptoms at all, there is even no reason why they should be in hospital. They could be isolated elsewhere, at home or wherever else. They don't have to be in a hospital setting. The hospital beds should be reserved by those who need hospital care. But now, whoever becomes positive, they dramatize it and take you as if, you know, the end of the world has come. That is another area of management that I don't agree with. But when you see asymptomatic, those who have no symptoms, you think that COVID is not there. COVID is there, my brother and sister. And be careful. Take precautions. I have failed in my duty, absolutely, if I did not caution you as a professional. That's why I say, boost your immunity. And after this show, I think I will republish what you need to do to boost your immunity. Now, boosting your immunity will protect you not only against COVID, but against all diseases. You won't even get the common flu, Senegal. You won't get many of the diseases that keep you in bed for nothing, for long without working. So boost your immunity, avoid getting this disease. Just as Trevor said, what measures do you recommend to increase with the increase in COVID infections? I think I have already answered that. Arinetwe Ivan, please clarify Honorable Nambo's utterance. Did you sign a deal with the Honorable Kyagulanyi that you will support him for 10 years? Well, I saw a clip of a recording in which the Honorable Betty Namboze said that there was an agreement for me to support Honorable Kyagulanyi in the elections and for Honorable Kyagulanyi to support us in the defiance campaigns. That I would like to say most clearly that there is no such a deal. Now, please be clear. I never engage in underhand deals, in secret deals. No. If we discuss and agree, we talk about our agreement. Why should our agreement be a secret? Whatever we have agreed with the leaders of people power, we have communicated to the country. First, we had a signed memorandum which we published. Secondly, under the United Forces of Change, when we met in Wakiso, again, we had a very clear press statement, which was read out by Omulodi Salongwelias Lukwago, and that communication was about our struggle for freedom, not about elections. It was about the struggle, the fight for our freedom, not about elections. Even that time, actually, the Honorable Kyagulanyi did not even have a party then, which he has now. The Honorable Namboze was not a member of his party, which he is now. So there is no agreement for me to support anybody in the elections. Everybody knows I am a member of FDC and a very disciplined member of FDC. That's why I even supported somebody who was clearly weak, but the party called that we do so. So I have told you my party, the Forum for Democratic Change, has not yet produced a candidate. I have also told you that my preference is that regardless of all these candidates, the country demands that we all unite. That is what the country demands. To be free, we must all unite and face our capital and not be in, talking about what Honorable Namboze said and what Honorable this said. No. Honorable Namboze is a prisoner as you are a prisoner, as I am a prisoner, as Kyagulanyi is a prisoner. All of us are prisoners. Talking about each other is a waste of time. So my preference is that even as we get all these candidates, we must focus in getting a transition leader to lead us now and into the future. And that's what everybody should be focused on and debating, not bickering amongst ourselves. I hope I'm clear. My first support, obviously, would go to the candidate of FDC, but secondly, to try and get a transition leader that guides us through this terrible situation. Casey Mukasa, I am a big fan of you. I have noticed in recent conversations on TV, you keep saying, I don't want my name to be used in the struggle. What do you mean? I think I have already clarified this. I say I don't want my name to be conscripted and used amongst bickering of candidates, you know, like we did in the TDA, you know, instead of facing the challenge ahead of us, we start contesting amongst ourselves and spend a lot of time, effort, and even you know, focus. We fight, we even fight, you know, and forget to look at the. So I have been a candidate many times. Some of the people who want to be candidates have no clue at all what it takes to be a candidate to fight Museveni. I have an experience 4 times. So I cannot be anxious to be a candidate of a process that is non-decisive in liberating the country. No. And I wouldn't like my name, therefore, to be dragged into reducing the speed at which we move to free the country. I don't want that to happen. And that's why I have been very, very determined to stop that. But also to allow our party, the Forum for Democratic Change, to, without my preempting their processes, go ahead and conclude their processes as we focus on trying to get a transition leader. Let me say also that part of what the dictator uses to divert us, I'm sure you have seen it already coming up, opinion polls, that they have now produced opinion polls, who is popular, who is less popular, popular in prison. And they want us now, they are trying to say, you know, now I respond, I say, this is not fair, I am more popular than you have said. Then the other one will say, just to keep us in a trap of paying attention to things that are not important. What is important is we are all prisoners. What is important is to free ourselves. We all need to pull together and to fight. Those are the 2 critical things for me. So that's what I mean, Mr. Mukasa. If it means never being a candidate again, I have no problem with it. I have absolutely no problem. As I have pointed out, being a candidate is a very, very secondary thing to our freedom. 3, Frankie of Wakiso. Frankie says, Besije, how do you go about with meal card politicians? Now, meal card politician is a term that has cropped up lately, and certainly it has derogatory connotations. It is meant to demean those who change positions, which I would not like to participate in. I think people change positions for different reasons, yes, including opportunism, but there are certainly very many principled people that nonetheless find it absolutely necessary to change positions. But as a general response to you, you know, I have previously said without any apology that the greatest majority of Uganda's elites, that is the educated class of Ugandans, that they are the problem of the country. And that includes me, the elites. We are the problem because, first of all, we are extremely selfish. Secondly, we are what is the word? You know, the whole idea of not wanting to sacrifice. So we like to live simple lives. And so we don't want to get our hands dirty. We don't want to do the hard work. We don't want, so which means we are inherently servants of our capital. And that is a very big problem. So you find that most elites who are in the opposition or who function from the opposition actually aspire to be like those who are causing us problems. They have the same, that's why if they are invited to the dining table of the oppressors, many will go. In fact, many even serve the oppressors while pretending to be with the oppressed. So, yes, to that extent, opportunism, not just of the politicians, of the elites, whether they are church leaders, the church leaders are very, very guilty of that. Most of the greatest majority of them, you see them with those envelopes and keeping quiet while the country is going down, while they are beating up people. I saw recently, and I forgot to express my sympathy regarding the destruction of Ndeva Church. You know, sacrilegious act, which shows you the level of decay in the system, the level of, you know, decadence, the level of impunity in the system. And it's a system, you know, after destroying the church, when people started rumor mongering that, this is Saleh, then I saw Saleh assembling all the church leaders and saying, I'm giving you 60 billion. Can you imagine? Now, 60 billion. What if they had not broken the church? Where is the 60 billion coming from? You know, from Saleh, who is the leader of Operation Wealth, Operation whatever, creation of wealth or what, you know? Then the following day, Mr. Museveni himself came to the church, said, now we are going to build the church. I don't know, we are going to do this and that, you know, shedding crocodile tears because that church was destroyed by the system he has built. Who gave the court order? There was a court order. Which system gave the court order? Which police superintended over the destruction? Eventually, he sends State House to arrest policemen, as if there is no Inspector General of Police, as if there is no Deputy Inspector General, as if there are no regional commanders, as if Nakalema, that is the one arresting the policeman of Katwe and arresting those who broke down the church. So should he arrest also the judge? Should he arrest, you know, all these people involved? So the thing is that, you know, it's the system. And a system is broken because the leaders of all types, including churchmen, are corrupt. You know, the elites are corrupt. Church leaders are always quiet when they are beating us. Injustice is elsewhere. Church leaders keep quiet. When they broke the church, I saw the church leaders mobilize lay readers, they mobilize the reverends that they are going to march to Ndeva. The police, of course, chased them. But they should know that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. If they are beating me, they should talk. If they are beating Chagulanyi, they should talk. If they are beating someone else, they should talk, you know? So the milk card politicians, those who are really milk card, they're not just politicians. They are in all areas, in business, the business community, who were saying, don't disturb us with your demonstrations, we are making money, until their malls were closed. When the malls were closed, now they start crying. When they did not cry, when the vendors, the batembe, were being tortured, dying in the Miara, those in the shops were keeping quiet. We must all know that injustice affects us all. Busangwa, Kingston, bannange tujja kuwabira bw'oteesimbawo. Watusadda abantu baffe sebo. This one is in Uganda. He's saying they are going to sue me if I don't become a candidate, because I have caused many people to die as a candidate before. Now it is true, many people have died, but they did not die because I was a candidate. They died because they were fighting for their freedom, you know? And more will die. I don't know whether I will live to see the freedom myself, you know? You see, I have no problem being a candidate any day. What we are talking about is what gives us the best chance of ending captivity. That is what gives us a chance, Mr. Busagwa. What gives us a chance? Is it just having candidates? No. Even in the previous elections, which were, I believe, a little better than the scientific one, candidates by themselves did not do anything. We need to think beyond being candidates. And that is what I am determined to do. And to persuade you, Busagwa, and all Ugandans, that we must focus beyond just participating in these controlled elections. But, you know, I have told you that what I will never do is to leave the struggle. That I want to do, because if I did, I would indeed be betraying those that we have fought with, those that have died, including my own brother. Don't forget, my own brother is in his grave. We were together in prison. He was there for 3 years. He's in his grave. I will betray him if I don't fight on. But fighting on is not just being a candidate. That's not the only way to fight on. Maybe it's not even the most useful way to do it. So what I am talking about is strategy. What leads us out of captivity best. That's what I will do. Time, I think we have used already more than 2 hours. This is necessary because we have not had this program for 2 weeks. So having an extra time was useful, but I think I shouldn't abuse the time of our people who are following this program. I know also the MBs are quite expensive. So I think I'll maybe deal with one more question and we try to wind up this program. Mr. Ruhinda Robert is saying, we are coming to attack you in Kasangati. We want to force you to pick nomination forms. Please don't. Please don't. It's not necessary to force me to pick nomination forms. First of all, especially for our young and very energetic and concerned, truly concerned youth, if you don't have faith and trust in me as a leader, then my role will be like what we are having in Uganda, that we don't trust the government which is there. If you trust me and you think I have a leadership role, which is, I believe, the reason you want to come and force me, then know that I may also know more things than you do, that I may have a wider view of the politics, domestic, international, seen and seen, because I get a lot of intelligence that you may never get. I am in touch with many people and groups that you may not know, and I may not have freedom to discuss. So it will be unadvisable to use what may be less information than I have to force me to do what you think is best in your eyes. I would appeal to you to have confidence in me, to trust that I will do whatever will serve our common good to the utmost, that I will never betray our cause, and I do what is in the best interest of the freedom of Uganda. So be calm, be calm. That's what I said. I told you first, awakening, awareness, but secondly, organization. To be organized, we must be disciplined. Organization goes hand in hand with discipline, especially in a struggle. In a struggle, there must be a command. And if the commander says, let's do this, and you say, me, I think we should do this, then you are finished. Then you have lost. So trust me if you want me to be a leader in the struggle. And know that I am doing everything in your best interest. Now, there are many questions more from Boaz Tweheyo, from Bohamizo Deus, and many others. You will excuse me. I will take these questions and maybe I will respond to you on the other media platforms if what I have said does not respond to what you asked. This is a weekly program every Saturday. It still remains a weekly program. This, nonetheless, is a very, very busy season. As I have told you, we are engaged in intensive consultations amongst ourselves. We have sometimes very many meetings. And so if we are not able to run it on any Saturday, just know that it is for those reasons. Whenever we can, we shall run this program every Saturday at 2 p.m. I wish you to stay safe. I wish you to stay alert, to protect yourself against COVID-19. It's real, it's a killer, but it's something we can overcome by avoiding it, and by preparing our bodies to fight it if it gets to us. Please do those two. As regards the politics, it's the season of struggle. Prepare yourself for struggle. We are coming. In the coming week, the week beginning tomorrow, in the coming week, I expect to address you and all dear countrymen and women about our next steps. That engagement hasn't been quite fully fixed, but most likely it will be on Wednesday in the morning. And so you will get to hear more about the political dynamics of the country. But I'd like to encourage you, we are on top of the situation. The junta, although externally appears as if it is strong and frightening, it is actually finished. Mr. Museveni is as finished as his junta. That is the truth of the matter. If you are holding a country hostage, but you have no money, even the money they are using to poorly pay the soldiers that guard them, they have to borrow that money today. The World Bank money, they have just borrowed about $1 billion from World Bank and IMF to pay salaries. You cannot survive. So they have destroyed their means to sustain themselves. They are on a life support machine, and the life support machine is controlled by others, not themselves. So they are finished for all intents and purposes. They have destroyed the economy, and they are going to pay heavily for it. Two, they have undermined all Ugandans, including those who guard them. There are no bitter people like the army men and women and policemen and women. They are very bitter. The way they sleep, the way their families live, the poverty they live in every day, the terrible conditions under which they work, they are more bitter than even you, the population. You know, the whole country is weakened and fed up. That's why I told you they are burning themselves. So there is no way Mr. Museveni can continue dominating and oppressing us in that way. Be confident. Be confident. Chija kugwa. It will end. I can see the end. Never give up. Stand up. Let's liberate our country. Let's free our country. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Uganda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that elaborate address. I think we have covered the period we have not been able to talk to fellow countrymen in this very address. Comrades in the struggle, the president has talked about so many things. The most important bit, which I'm going to pick, the rest, everything was okay, but I just want to pick the critical things that we need to take home going forward. One, he has said COVID is there, we should relax. Because even if we are preparing, we prepare ourselves to go and fight and free ourselves, it is only those who will be healthy and alive who will be fighting. So please don't give up on protecting yourself. Boost your immunity and protect yourself against COVID using the 3 methods we have been telling you. Wear your face mask religiously, wash your hands with soap and water, and make sure you maintain a social distance of about 2 meters away from each other if you're not having face masks. Don't get deceived by the annoyance that we have got into as a result of mismanagement of the COVID fight by the junta system. COVID is there. Don't relax. 2, the president has said he doesn't want the junta to use his name to delay the liberation of the country. He doesn't want the junta to use him as one of the items on their agenda to create problems among fighters who are supposed to focus on him. That's why he's very, very reluctant on the issue of elections per se. He doesn't want to be focused there. His focus is somewhere else. Continuing with the fight to get out the junta without necessarily going into being dragged into that election. So he's not leaving the fight, as he has always said. He will be there until the junta is done or until he himself is done, as he has always said. So remain focused. Don't think that he's going to leave now the fight and go away into something else. No. Until it is done, he's not going to leave the struggle. So for those who think without BSJ or without him, the struggle is ending, no, it is not ending. He's not just interested in being used by the junta to confuse other people who are supposed to come and join the struggle. The last bit is that if we all come together, we identify fighters, organize ourselves, and then we act in unison, it cannot take us 1 week to get rid of the junta. So please organize yourself and be ready to sacrifice, and then we fight together as one group. We shouldn't struggle to be leaders of those who are in prison, but we should struggle all together as one unit, and we focus on the junta. And once we focus on the junta, 1 week we shall be done. That is what I thought I should rephrase for you countrymen. Now, this one is ending today. The session is ending in the next few minutes. But please go organize yourself. The war to to liberate our country is coming towards the end. And usually when it is ending, it is always very tough. And for those who are fearful, they will run away. But we are saying, please, when you see the thing getting so tough, you should also prepare yourself and get tougher on the front line. So for today, we are going to end here. But we are saying you don't lose hope, stay focused, and when we all act together, the junta is going to go. And everything that has a beginning, countrymen, has an ending. Don't give up. We should fight and dismantle the junta and the system. Because even if he goes away tomorrow by other means, once the system is still in place, it will still continue oppressing us without even him. So thank you very much for being with us for the last 2 hours and some minutes. We pray that you remain healthy and spend the weekend profitably. So see you next week, God willing. Bye-bye.
Mu ofiisi y'omulabirizi ow'ennamirembe. Olwaleero tuzuukukidde mu kiyongobero eky'amaanyi ennyo olw'ekikangabwa ky'okumenyebwawo kw'ekkanisa St. Peter's mu Ndeeba. Tusaasira nnyo abakristaayo b'ekkanisa eyo, obusumba bw'e Katwettu n'obusaabadiikoni bw'e Mmengo, era ffenna twesaasira. Ensonga egulumbiza ekkanisa okumalira ddala emyaka egiwerera ddala okuwunzika bw'etyo. Kiwuniikiriza, kiruma, era kireeta ekiyongobero buli akiwulira. Kino kikoleddwa nga tukyali mu muggalo era ne kikolebwa mu biseera abalala ffenna bwe batugambira nti temuva mu mayumba gammwe. Ekyo nno kiraga nti abaakoze ekyo balina amaanyi g'emmundu era be bakkirizibwa okutambula ekiro ng'abalala ffenna tetukkirizibwa. Era kiraga nti be bantu abalina obuyinza okukola effujjo nga tewali abakuba ku mukono. Kino nno kitalo. Bannange, oluvannyuma lwa kino omutuufu ali emabega w'okusiguukulula ekkanisa mu kifo ekyo ajja kutegeerekeka. Tweteeketeeke okumumanya ne kyagenda okuteekawo. Ng'abakkiriza mwenna mbasaba temujja maaso ku Mukama nannyini nsi n'okujjula kwayo. Wabula tumanye nti bino ebiseera bizibu nnyo. Omulabe afunze ekyonga era asiikudde enfuufu etagambika kubanga amanyi nti alina ekiseera kitono. N'olwekyo abooluganda, Katonda atujjukiza nti newankubadde bino byonna weebiri, ye munene nnyo okusinga ebizibu bye tuyitamu. Yesu atuyigiriza okutyanga oyo alina obuyinza okutta omubiri n'omwoyo. Abakola ebyo balina emmundu n'okulaga obuyinza era basobola okutta naye batta mubiri. Tebajja kutta kukkiriza kw'abantu era tebalina buyinza ku mwoyo. Abamu ku ffe COVID-19 si y'anaatutta wabula entalo ez'ebintu nga bino. Neebaza bonna ababadde mu nsonga eno emyaka gyonna okuviira ddala mu myaka gy'ekinaana nga bwe tutegeezebwa nga n'abamu tetunnaba kulowoozebwa titulibeera mu buweereza buno. Kale neebaza abalabirizi, baministers, abasumba, ababuulizi, bannamateeka baffe, abakulembeze mu Lubaga Division, RDC, Meya, ababaka mu Parliament, abeerosi, abakristaayo mwenna mu Ndeeba, Katwetu ng'obusumba, n'obusabadiikoni bw'Emmengo, n'obulabirizi bwonna awamu n'obusaabalabirizi bwonna. Sutefano bwe yali akubibwa amayinja, abaamukuba baalina amaaso agalaba amayinja, naye Sutefano yalina maaso galaba kitiibwa ekyali kigenda okubikkulirwa. Nsaba abakola bino si wano bokka, naye buli gye babikola era ne gye bateekateeka okubikola, Mukama ababikkulire bategeere gwe balwanyisa. Nga Pawulo eyaliwo nga batta Sutefano, era kigambibwa nti n'asiima okuttibwa kwe, Katonda bwe yamweraga mu maanyi teyasigala kye kimu. Kale oyo akoze ebyo, ate mu kiro Katonda ajja kumutulaga misana ttuku. Era nze musabira alokoke ne bonna baakola nabo ng'ayolesa obuyinza. Abooluganda, tugume era Katonda atunyweze, kubanga bino bye bimu ku bitujjukiza nti tuli mu lutalo. Naye omugabe waffe ye Yesu. Bw'akulembera bingi ebitutuukako. Kyetuva tuyimba mu luyimba olwo nti ng'akulembedde nnyinza ntya okubuusabuusa ye bw'aba nga ntwala bulijjo. Embeera zino n'endala zireme okutuleetera okubuusabuusa. Era mu luyimba lwe lumu tugamba nti abalaba abali nnumba y'alibawangula. Engeri gy'awangulamu ebintu ye sigala mu buyinza bwe. Oluusi n'atulagira ddala bw'awangula entalo ezo. Era mu luyimba tugamba nti ne bwe mbanga numwa enjala andiisa ku mmere ye, era n'ampozaawoza ng'ampa amazzi ag'obulamu. Nsaba emitima gyaffe Mukama agiwozeewoze era atulage nti ye yennyini ajja kututwala mu maaso, kubanga tuli mu lutalo era nga tulwana n'ensi n'ebibi ne Sitaani, era atusuubiza okubeera abawanguzi mu linnya lye. Temujja maaso ku Mukama munene okusinga ebizibu bye tuyitamu, era Mukama abawa omukisa ng'abazzaamu amaanyi, ng'abanyweza si lwa kino kyokka, n'ebirala bingi bannange bye muyitamu era bye tuyitamu, ng'amaka, ng'ekkanisa, ng'eggwanga. Mukama abakuume. Nze omulabirizi Right Reverend Wilberforce Kityo Luwalira, omulabirizi w'e Namirembe. Bannange